Good afternoon. It is Wednesday, September 16th. This is Dave from Candid Wholesale. We're doing our listener mailbag for the month of August 20th, which is more than just a mailbag. It's actually user feedback and also just kind of general trends that we're seeing, because we at Candid Wholesale find ourselves at the nexus of brands and retailers and showrooms, and we find out that we just kind of there's a lot of chatter that we get, more so I think now that everybody's online. More of those conversations are happening online and we're a part of them. So in these incredibly weird and uncertain times, we like to just kind of run down what we're seeing and what we're hearing month after month. And this, of course, is our look back on August. So we're going to be skipping over the wildfires that I'm currently stuck inside by, and I think a lot of people on the West Coast, I know a lot of people on the West Coast are. Believe it or not, that is a September thing and not an August thing. But let's give a quick rundown of kind of what we're seeing, what we're hearing here at Candid. So high level, economically speaking, it's interesting because I'm looking at some numbers from the National Retail Federation. Retail sales actually grew in August. They were up about 0.5% from July and 2.6% year over year adjusted, which is, it's just an interesting stat. It makes sense, but it's a little counterintuitive that things are going up. And I think as we walk through sector by sector, you'll see, and you'll probably, like me, say, oh yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. The big movers sector by sector were, clothing. Unsurprisingly, clothing and accessories are down 23.5% year over year. So that's, I certainly have no one to dress up for, no offense. Present company accepted. I have my 4 shirts. I will continue to have my 4 shirts. I think that's unfortunately a pretty universal trend right now. Not a lot of, no one's needing backpacks for back to school, or fewer people are, and all that. Building materials and garden supplies actually up about 12%, which makes a lot of sense. I certainly have a lot more gardening that I do now than I did last year. And I think, knowing everybody I've talked to has got some kind of project going on. And so clearly those are some big winners right now. Electronics and appliances are actually kind of holding steady. They're down a couple percentage points, 3.4%, but I think there was a big frenzy earlier in the summer when people realized the extent to which they were going to be early in the summer / pandemic, the extent to which education was becoming remote. And I know that certain items like webcams are just very hard to find online. And there's been a big run on a lot of technology stuff for facilitating remote anything. What are our other big movers? Online sales, to no one's surprise, up 20.1% year over year. That's just how people are doing their shopping right now. And unfortunately, as I'm sure anyone watching this has felt, that tends to favor the big boxes. And unfortunately, I think that's where a lot of this growth is coming, because certainly smaller businesses are hurting. They're just, it's hard to compete with Amazon. Amazon was prepared for a moment like this kind of with eerie precision. And it's hard to beat free shipping. It's hard to beat the economies of scale that come with those kind of retail juggernauts. The other big mover, grocery and beverage stores, up 8.3% year over year, of course, and sporting goods stores up 8%. Again, just things that are really working well with facilitating the stay-at-home lifestyle. I know I've personally seen my spending go up and down kind of in sync with that. And I think just multiply that by the hundreds of millions of Americans that are out there, and you get those kind of trends. Again, though, I think as I just said, like a lot of that is not necessarily trickling down to the smaller to medium-sized stores, and a lot of it is concentrated at the top with your Amazons and the like. As far as specific trends, back to school has been the big thing, as it always is. I think there's obviously we're heading into trade show seasons, which I'm about to talk about. So that's its whole other thing. But one interesting thing that we've seen, there was initially a big surge in people who could work towards making masks or PPE that happened kind of early in the pandemic. That's still definitely happening. I think if you look at any company that does any kind of sewing or has access to those kind of machines probably has masks that they're selling. And at this point, people have settled into more of a groove. There's not that initial frenzy of I need masks, and then, oh, it turns out the ones that tie in the back are less comfortable. I want the ones that are over ear. I think at this point everybody has them, and they're just kind of that bump has seemed to have leveled out. So they're still getting made, but they're no longer the revenue driver that they were briefly for a few companies who were able to pivot into that really successfully. Speaking of trade shows, it is trade show season. This is historically late August to early September is where we tend to see the most trade show activity. Where our core sectors, of course, are apparel and home goods, and we expand outward from there, but that's where a lot of Candid's users and customers are. And why August and September are so important is because you're working backwards from the holidays. You're working backwards from Black Friday and the holiday sales. In order for a retailer to have products on the shelves, they need to get them shipped to them earlier. And in order to get them shipped to them earlier, they need to have purchased them. And a lot of times, especially in apparel, when you're doing sort of on-demand printing, you'll do pre-sale. So you'll sell a season before you've even made it to gauge demand. And then if you wind up with you got 7 colorways that you offer for pre-sale, 2 of them have fewer than 5 orders, you maybe go in and you say, hey, sorry, we're discontinuing this line. Would you like our, should we swap out your bruised fruit to wet midnight or whatever? And then you just kind of optimize your production runs there. But the point being, a lot of times, even at huge, even at large levels, I think pre-selling to gauge interest and capacity is a thing, and production runs need to happen in October, which means sales need to be finalized in September. So all of that leads to August and September being the sweet spot for trade shows. And in our core sectors, the big ones that we sort of build the whole calendar around, and a lot of stores do too, are New York Now and Shop Object, which happen late August, early September in New York. And those are both, of course, not happening physically. So as we've talked about plenty of times here, if you've been on this channel at all, it's been all trade shows for the last month, because it's the thing. And pretty much everybody who has done trade shows in the past has hustled together and gotten some kind of virtual trade show offering up. We've seen Fair, who's a wholesale management platform. They put on their own online show just for Fair users. We saw Shop Object do what I believe was a platform agnostic virtual trade show that was online. And we, of course, at Candid have the Open on Candid series. We're wrapping up Portland Supply, which is our trade show that we did in partnership with Prosper Portland and Portland Made and Mercatus PDX to bring 100 Portland brands on, shoppable wherever by wholesale buyers. That had its big launch earlier in the month and is winding down as the month continues. And we're about to launch a new one that we just announced today with Join Design, one of our favorite design collectives that we've worked with in the past. And that's going to be really fun too. But point being, everybody's kind of doing their own thing, and this is pioneer territory. So some of the feedback we've gotten, everybody's really excited about them. Some of the feedback that we've gotten, I think, across the board with a lot of these platforms is just that if you build it, people don't necessarily come. And I think that there's been a little, we've heard a lot of feedback that some of these stores, some of these shows, and I won't name names except to say that it's not Candid, have been charging fees that are on par with the physical events, which, if you've ever been to a trade show or know anything about trade shows, can be in the 4 to 5 digits. Just a lot of money to pay to be there. And when that doesn't necessarily translate into sales, that can be incredibly frustrating and leaving people with a taste in their mouth. So August is where a lot of these platforms and users have been getting their first taste of online trade show. We're pretty happy with it, with the Open series and the ones that we've seen. It's our job in a lot of ways to come up with a critique list of what we think everybody can be doing better, including ourselves. But by and large, I mean, I think that this month has seen a pretty solid showing. I think everybody's got a different flavor and different approaches they're trying out. And I think that if there is one right answer, it's going to shake out. Probably, by the end of this season, I think the next big trade show season that we're going to see, at least in our sectors that we're monitoring very closely, is going to be late January, early February. And I'm curious to see how things evolve by then. But yeah, the overwhelming feedback is that brands super excited to go. Sales not necessarily being what people are expecting. And if there's a ticket price associated with that, that can really leave a bad taste in people's mouths. But again, before the pandemic even happened, we've been looking at trade shows and building towards some kind of trade show replacement, because they serve a purpose, but they're very, very expensive and tricky to do physically. And I think that this shock forcing everybody to come up with real first-class alternatives to the physical show. I would be very surprised if online trade shows don't continue to grow and thrive even once we're able to get out of our laundry rooms and mingle in meet space once more. Yeah, so that's what we've seen. August was, it was just another month, just another month in quarantine. Yeah, it's been an interesting ride, and I'm very excited to look back on September. I know we're halfway through it already, and we've already seen some very interesting stuff that I will not talk about now because we're just talking about August. But check back in a couple of weeks when we do our rundown of September. As always, you can find us here at the Candid Wholesale community. We're very excited to have people here in our community. It's a fun one for just talking about this stuff. Whether you're a brand, a retailer, a showroom, it's open, and we love to find out what's going on, because these are exceptionally weird times, and I've really taken a lot of strength and solace in the conversations I've had with other people in the industry, and I hope that we're able to do that for you guys as well. So thank you one and all. This is Dave signing off. We will see you soon.